Money can buy power, but it can't buy a man's true intentions. Desperate to find someone who loved her for her heart and not her $12 billion empire, a ruthless CEO swapped her tailored suits for a faded nanny's uniform. Her undercover social experiment completely shattered her reality. Beatrice Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Manhattan penthouse, swirling a glass of Macallan, 1926. At 32, she was the sole heir and le CIO of Sterling Global, a real estate and tech conglomerate worth over $12 billion. She had everything society dictated a woman should want: unlimited power, a fleet of luxury cars, and a closet that rivaled high-end boutiques. Yet, as she looked down at the glittering city lights, she felt profoundly, overwhelmingly empty. Her phone buzzed on the marble kitchen island. It was a text from Preston Davies, a prominent hedge fund manager she had been seeing for a month. "Fantastic gala tonight, B. Can't wait to finalize that merger between our firms. You looked great too, by the way." Beatrice scoffed, tossing the phone aside. The merger. It was always about the merger, the stock options, the strategic alliances. Every man she met either wanted to conquer her empire or use her name to elevate his own. Preston had spent the entire evening schmoozing her board members, barely looking her in the eye unless a camera flashed. She was exhausted by the masquerade. She wanted a man with integrity, a man who treated the janitor with the same respect he showed the CEO. And sitting in her silent, cavernous penthouse, a wildly unorthodox idea began to take root in her mind. The next morning, Beatrice marched into her executive suite and slammed a modest beige folder onto her assistant's desk. "Zion," Beatrice said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Cancel my social calendar for the next month. Push the board meetings to Zoom, audio only. And I need you to create a fake profile on CareConnect, the child care app." Zion, a fiercely competent woman who rarely blinked at Beatrice's demands, froze with her coffee cup halfway to her mouth. "I'm sorry, a child care app? Are you adopting, Ms. Sterling?" "No," Beatrice replied, a sharp smile playing on her lips. "I am becoming a nanny." Zion choked on her coffee. "You? A nanny? You don't even know how to operate the microwave in the break room." "I'll learn," Beatrice said dismissively. "I need to know how these high society men behave when there's nothing in it for them. When a woman is invisible, part of the background, just the help. That's when the mask slips. I'm going to apply to the households of the men my mother and the board keep trying to set me up with. I want to see who they really are." Over the next week, the billionaire CEO underwent a drastic transformation. The designer blowout was replaced by a messy, practical bun. Her custom Chanel suits were swapped for oversized, faded sweaters, sensible denim, and scuffed sneakers from a thrift store in Queens. She removed her makeup, hid her flawless complexion behind thick-rimmed, blue-light glasses, and adopted the pseudonym B. Smith, a struggling graduate student looking to make ends meet. Her first target was Preston Davies. She knew his sister was leaving her 3-year-old son with him for the weekend while she attended a retreat, and Preston had put out a frantic VIP request for a weekend nanny. Beatrice intercepted the request through the app. When Beatrice arrived at Preston's sprawling estate in the Hamptons, wearing her oversized sweater and carrying a canvas tote bag, she was met with immediate disdain. Preston opened the door, dressed in a silk robe, a phone pressed to his ear. He didn't even look at her face. "You're late," he snapped, motioning for her to enter without pausing his conversation. "Yes, sell the tech stocks. I don't care, just dump them." He finally hung up and glared at Beatrice. "Listen, Barbara, or whatever your name is. The kid is in the playroom. Don't let him touch the leather sofas. Don't speak to me unless the house is on fire. and use the service entrance when you leave. I have a very important woman coming over later, the CEO of Sterling Global, and I don't want any help cluttering up the foyer." Beatrice's jaw tightened. She bowed her head, hiding her fury. "Of course, Mr. Davies." She spent 3 hours in that house. In that time, Preston screamed at the housekeeper, completely ignored his crying nephew, and threw a glass of sparkling water at the wall, because it wasn't chilled to his exact liking. Beatrice quietly recorded his tirades on her phone, packed her canvas bag, and walked out the front door, leaving Preston to deal with the toddler. She sent the audio files to her board of directors with a single sentence: "The merger is off. The experiment was a brutal success." For 2 weeks, Beatrice infiltrated the homes of the elite. She witnessed wealthy bachelors mistreating staff, making derogatory comments about working-class people, and revealing their true, ugly colors. She was ready to delete the app and resign herself to a life of corporate solitude. But then, the app algorithm glitched. It matched B. Smith, not with a millionaire in Tribeca, but with a profile in a modest, middle-class suburb in New Jersey. The profile belonged to Wynne Hayes, a 34-year-old architectural draftsman and single father. His bio was painfully honest. "Working late shifts to keep a roof over our heads. Desperately need someone kind to watch my 6-year-old daughter, Lily. I can't pay much, but I offer free meals and a respectful home." Something about the sincerity of the words caught Beatrice's attention. She was scheduled to return to her ivory tower on Monday, but on a whim, she clicked "Accept Interview." The house was a tiny, slightly run-down craftsman-style bungalow with peeling white paint and a porch swing that looked like it had seen better days. Beatrice pulled her rented Toyota Corolla into the narrow driveway, a stark contrast to her usual chauffeur-driven Maybach. Taking a deep breath, she walked up the steps and knocked. The door swung open to reveal Wynne Hayes. He looked utterly exhausted. He wore a faded flannel shirt dusted with drywall powder, his dark hair ruffled as if he'd been running his hands through it all day. But his eyes, a striking, warm amber, were remarkably kind. "You must be B," Wynne said, his face breaking into a relieved, genuine smile. He immediately extended his hand. "I'm Wynne. Thank you so much for coming all the way out here. I know it's not the easiest commute." Beatrice hesitated before shaking his hand. His palm was rough, calloused from hard work, completely unlike the manicured, soft hands of the men in her circle. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Hayes. Please call me Wynne. Mr. Hayes's makes me look around for my dad," he chuckled, stepping aside to let her in. The living room was small but incredibly warm. It was cluttered with colorful children's books, a half-finished Lego castle, and framed photographs of a smiling little girl. There was no priceless modern art, no cold marble. It smelled like cinnamon and slightly burnt toast. "Lily!" Wynne called out. A little girl with missing front teeth and wild curly hair peeked around the hallway corner. She was clutching a worn-out stuffed rabbit. "Lily, this is B. She's going to hang out with you a few evenings a week so Daddy can finish his drafting project," Wynne explained, kneeling down to be at his daughter's eye level. He spoke to her with a gentleness that made Beatrice's chest tighten. "Do you like dinosaurs?" Lily asked suspiciously. Beatrice blinked. Yes. The T-Rex is highly efficient," she replied, her corporate speak slipping out. Wynne laughed loudly, a rich, booming sound. "Efficient, I like that. Look, B, I'll be honest with you," he said, standing up and rubbing the back of his neck. "I can only afford $18 an hour right now. My firm went under, and I'm freelancing while trying to start my own contracting business. But I will always have a hot meal for you, and if you ever need time off for your studies, just tell me. You are helping me keep my family afloat, and I respect that." Beatrice stared at him. He was broke, visibly stressed, yet he was offering her more dignity and respect in 5 minutes than Preston Davies had offered her in a month of dating. "18 an hour is fine, Wyn," she said softly. Her first week was an unmitigated disaster of her own making. Beatrice Sterling could orchestrate a hostile takeover of a European tech firm in her sleep, but she had absolutely no idea how to boil pasta. On Wednesday evening, Wyn was locked in his small home office, racing against a deadline. Beatrice was tasked with making macaroni and cheese for Lily. Distracted by a frantic, vibrating text from Zion regarding a collapsing supply chain in Berlin, Beatrice left the burner on high. 10 minutes later, the smoke alarm was shrieking. Wyn burst out of his office, coughing as smoke filled the kitchen. Beatrice was standing there, mortified, wearing oven mitts and staring at a blackened, smoking pot of charcoal that used to be dinner. "I am so sorry," Beatrice stammered, her heart racing. In her world, a mistake like this resulted in brutal public reprimands and firings. She braced herself for him to yell, to berate her, to throw her out. Instead, Wyn grabbed a dish towel, flapped it under the smoke detector to silence it, and turned off the stove. He looked at the ruined pot, then at Beatrice's horrified face. A smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. Then he started to laugh. "Well," Wyn wheezed, wiping a tear from his eye, "I guess we're ordering pizza. Are you okay? You didn't burn yourself, did you, Bea?" Beatrice was stunned. You're not angry. I ruined the pan. I wasted your groceries." "Bea, it's a $12 pan and 50 cents worth of pasta," Wyn said gently, stepping closer. He reached out and gently smudged a streak of soot off her cheek with his thumb. The brief contact sent a jolt of electricity straight down Beatrice's spine. "You're human. Mistakes happen. Plus, Lily has been begging for pepperoni pizza all week, so you're basically her hero now." That night, they sat on the worn living room rug, eating pizza straight from the cardboard box. Wyn asked her about her studies. Beatrice found herself fabricating a story about studying business administration, but the passion in her voice when she spoke about market trends was real. Wyn listened intently, never interrupting, genuinely fascinated by her intellect. "You're brilliant, Bea," he said softly. A slice of pizza paused halfway to his mouth. "Whatever company hires you after you graduate is going to be incredibly lucky. You have a CEO's mind." Beatrice swallowed hard, guilt twisting violently in her gut. If only you knew, she thought. As the weeks passed, Beatrice found herself living a bizarre double life. By day, she was the ruthless, untouchable billionaire, commanding boardrooms in tailored silk. By 4 p.m., she was shedding her diamonds in the back of a tinted SUV, changing into her thrift store clothes and driving her rental car to Wyn's house. She was falling in love. Not with the thrill of a corporate victory, but with the way Wyn read bedtime stories using different voices. With the way he insisted she take the larger piece of chicken at dinner. With the way he looked at her, not as an asset, not as a conquest, but as an equal, as a woman. But the two worlds were on a violent collision course. It happened on a rainy Thursday. Sterling Global was in the final hours of acquiring Vanguard Corp, a massive international shipping logistics firm. The negotiations had turned hostile, and Beatrice had to be constantly connected to her legal team. She was in Wyn's living room, an invisible Bluetooth earpiece hidden beneath her messy hair. Lily was colouring on the floor. Wyn was out in the garage cutting wood for a project. "They want a higher severance package for their outgoing board," Zion's voice buzzed frantically in Beatrice's ear. "Absolutely not," Beatrice whispered fiercely, pacing the small living room, her CEO persona bleeding through. Tell Harrison that if they don't accept the current valuation, we pull the plug. Let them declare bankruptcy. I am not subsidizing their failure. Squeeze them. She was so focused on the multi-million-dollar threat that she didn't hear the back door open. She didn't hear Wynn's heavy boots stepping onto the linoleum kitchen floor. "Bea!" Beatrice froze. She spun around. Wynn was standing in the doorway, a deep frown creasing his forehead. But he wasn't looking at her face. He was looking at the coffee table. In her rush to answer the urgent call, Beatrice had dumped her canvas tote bag onto the sofa. The contents had spilled out. Lying right next to Lily's crayons, gleaming under the cheap living room light, was Beatrice's wallet. It had fallen open. Wynn slowly walked over, his eyes locked on the sleek, heavy metal card resting on the fabric. It was a J.P. Morgan Reserve card, an invitation-only credit card reserved exclusively for the ultra-wealthy, and stamped across the bottom, in crisp, unmistakable silver lettering, was the name: Beatrice Sterling. Wynn picked up the card. The silence in the room was deafening, save for the rain lashing against the windows. He looked from the heavy metal card to the woman in the faded sweater. "Bea." Wynn's voice was low, trembling with a mix of confusion and a rising, terrible realization. Who exactly are you?" The silence in the cramped living room was suffocating. Outside, thunder rattled the thin window panes, but it was nothing compared to the storm brewing in Wynn's amber eyes. He held the sleek, heavy metal card between his calloused fingers, tracing the embossed letters of Beatrice's name. "Wynn," Beatrice started, her voice faltering. She reached up with trembling fingers and pulled the Bluetooth earpiece from her ear, tossing it onto the table beside the canvas bag. The illusion was shattered. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" Wynn's voice was dangerously calm. He didn't yell. He didn't throw things like the men in her world would have. That made it infinitely worse. "Explain how my nanny, a broke graduate student who supposedly commutes an hour just to afford textbooks, is carrying a J.P. Morgan Reserve card?" "I know what this is, Bea. My old boss had one. You have to have 10 million in assets just to get the invitation." He looked up, his gaze piercing right through her thrift store sweater and messy bun. "Who is Beatrice Sterling?" Beatrice swallowed the lump in her throat. I am Beatrice Sterling. I am the CEO of Sterling Global." Wynn let out a harsh, breathless laugh, dropping the card onto the table as if it burned him. He took a step back, putting physical distance between them. "Sterling Global, the real estate conglomerate. You own half of Manhattan." He ran a hand over his face, smearing a streak of drywall dust across his forehead. "Is this a joke? Is this some hidden camera show? Did you buy this block and want to see how the peasants live before you bulldoze it?" "No. Wynn, no, please," Beatrice pleaded, taking a step forward. "It has nothing to do with your house or your neighborhood. It was a test. I was surrounded by men who only wanted my money, my influence, my company. I was suffocating. I wanted to see if anyone in this world could treat me like a human being when I had absolutely nothing to offer them. I went on the app to test wealthy bachelors, and then the algorithm glitched, and I found you." Wynn stared at her, the betrayal etching deep lines around his mouth. "A test. You used my life, my daughter's life, as a social experiment. It didn't start that way with you, I swear. But when I met you, when I saw how kind you were, how you treated me, I just wanted to stay. I wanted to know what it felt like to be cared for without a price tag. Do you have any idea what my life is, Beatrice?" Wynn's voice finally cracked, raw with emotion. "I stay up until 3 a.m. drafting blueprints just so I can afford Lily's pediatric dentist bills. I skip lunch so I can buy her the brand name cereals she likes. My stress is real. My fear of failing my daughter is real. And you? You were playing dress-up. You were engaging in poverty tourism because you were bored in your ivory tower. That's not fair, Beatrice whispered, tears finally spilling over her lashes, ruining the plain, makeup-free facade she had maintained for weeks. My feelings for you are real. Feelings don't pay the mortgage, Wynne said coldly. He turned his back to her, staring blankly at the wall of family photos. I need you to leave. Now. Wynne, please, let me help you. I can fund your contracting business. I can set up a trust for Lily. Don't you dare! He whirled around, his eyes blazing with fierce pride. I am not a charity case, and my daughter is not your pet project. Keep your billions, Miss Sterling. We don't want them. Get out of my house. Beatrice knew when a negotiation was dead. She had lost. Nodding numbly, she gathered her spilled belongings, leaving the heavy metal card on the table. She walked out into the pouring rain, the chill soaking through her thin sweater, but it was nothing compared to the ice in her chest. Back in Manhattan, Beatrice returned to her life with a vengeance. She threw away the thrift store clothes and locked herself in her corner office. She became more ruthless than ever. The Vanguard Corp acquisition was finalized in a brutal hostile takeover, securing Sterling Global's dominance in the logistics sector. But at night, sitting in her cavernous penthouse, she ate takeout from a Michelin-starred restaurant and tasted nothing but Wynne's burnt macaroni. She had everything, and she had never been poorer. Meanwhile, a different kind of storm was gathering in the financial district. Preston Davies, the hedge fund manager Beatrice had humiliated during her first Nanny test, had not taken his rejection lightly. Preston was a man whose ego was as fragile as it was inflated. When Beatrice abruptly cancelled their merger and vanished from his social circle, he didn't just get mad. He got a private investigator. Preston wanted leverage. He wanted to know where the untouchable Ice Queen of Wall Street had disappeared to for 3 weeks. 2 weeks after Beatrice left New Jersey, Preston sat in his mahogany-paneled office, flipping through a manila folder. Inside were grainy photographs of Beatrice Sterling, wearing a faded sweater and glasses, carrying groceries into a run-down bungalow in New Jersey. There were background checks on Wynne Hayes, his failed architectural firm, and his struggling freelance business. Preston's lips curled into a predatory smile. He didn't understand why Beatrice was playing house with a broke carpenter, but he understood leverage. If Beatrice cared about this man enough to live a double life, destroying him would be the perfect revenge. "Call our acquisitions department," Preston ordered his assistant over the intercom. "There's a local community bank in New Jersey holding a mortgage for an Wynne Hayes. Buy the debt. I don't care what premium they want. And find out who he's trying to get contracting bids with. Blacklist him." Within 48 hours, Wynne's world collapsed. He was sitting at his kitchen table, reviewing his dwindling bank statements, when the phone rang. It was the commercial lender who had promised him a crucial small business loan to get his contracting firm off the ground. The loan was suddenly, inexplicably denied due to external market pressures. An hour later, a courier arrived in the pouring rain, handing Wynne a thick, legal envelope. Wynne ripped it open, his heart sinking into his stomach. His mortgage had been sold to a holding company named Davies Financial Solutions, and they were demanding immediate payment in full on a technicality clause buried deep in his original contract, citing his lapsed insurance from his previous bankrupt firm. They were foreclosing. He had 30 days to vacate the premises. Wynne slumped into a kitchen chair, burying his face in his hands. He had fought so hard. He had worked his fingers to the bone, swallowed his pride, and done everything right to protect his daughter. And in the blink of an eye, an invisible, faceless corporate entity had reached down and crushed him like a bug. He looked at the framed picture of Lily on the wall. He had failed her. Zion burst into Beatrice's office, urgency written across her face. Preston Davies just bought Wynn's mortgage. He's foreclosing, and blacklisted his business. Beatrice went still. Then the pen in her hand snapped. He touched my family, she said, quietly, fury sharpening her voice. Within minutes, she was issuing orders. I want Davies destroyed. Every asset, every weakness, use it. What followed was ruthless. Markets crashed, investors fled, and by morning, Preston was finished. But Beatrice wasn't watching the numbers. She was already on her way to New Jersey, to Wynn. The chauffeur opened the door, and Beatrice stepped out. She wasn't wearing a thrift store sweater. She wore a tailored, slate-grey Tom Ford suit, a silk blouse, and Louboutin heels. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like exactly what she was, a billionaire CEO. Wynn's jaw tightened. He walked down the porch steps, crossing his arms over his faded flannel shirt. "I thought I told you to stay away," Wynn said, his voice laced with bitter resignation. "What are you doing here, Beatrice? Did you come to watch the final act of your little play? Because you're just in time. The bank took the house. We're moving to a motel tonight." Beatrice walked up the driveway, her heart pounding against her ribs harder than it had during any board meeting. She reached into her designer briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. "You aren't moving anywhere, Wynn," she said, her voice soft but steady. She held the folder out to him. Wynn looked at it suspiciously but didn't take it. "What is this?" "It's the deed to this house, fully paid off. Alongside it is a guaranteed 5-year exclusive contracting retainer with Sterling Global's development arm for your new business. It's a multi-million-dollar contract. It's yours." Wynn stared at the folder, then at Beatrice, his expression hardening. "I told you, I am not a charity case. I can't be bought. I won't let you assuage your rich guilt by throwing money at me." "This isn't charity," Beatrice snapped, her composure finally breaking. Tears welled in her eyes, threatening to ruin her perfect mascara. "And it isn't guilt. It's an apology. And it's justice." Wynn frowned. "Justice?" Beatrice took a deep breath, stepping closer. "The company that foreclosed on you yesterday, it was owned by Preston Davies. He's a hedge fund manager I went on a date with right before I met you. He found out I was here, and he destroyed your life just to get back at me. This wasn't bad luck, Wynn. This was my fault. My world bled into yours, and you paid the price." Wynn was stunned. The sheer cruelty of it was beyond his comprehension. "He took my home. To hurt you?" "Yes," Beatrice nodded, a tear finally slipping down her cheek. "But he can't hurt you anymore. I destroyed his company this morning. He's gone. The debt is gone. The house is yours, free and clear, forever. You never have to worry about a roof over Lily's head again." She pressed the folder into his chest. This time, Wynn reflexively took it. "I'm sorry I lied to you," Beatrice said, her voice breaking. "I was terrified of being loved for my money, so I stripped it all away. But in doing so, I stripped away my honesty too. I didn't come here today to buy your forgiveness, Wynn. I came here to give you back what my world stole from you. You and Lily deserve a beautiful life, and I promise you will never see me again." She turned around, her heels clicking on the concrete driveway, feeling as though she were walking to her own execution. She had saved him, but she had lost him forever. She reached for the handle of the Maybach. "Be!" The sound of his voice, Using her nickname, not her formal title, made her freeze. She turned back. Wynne had dropped the folder onto the hood of her car. He walked toward her, the anger and pride that had been shielding him finally melting away, leaving only the kind, exhausted single father she had fallen in love with. "You burned down a billionaire's empire for me?" Wynne asked, a faint, disbelieving smile touching his lips. Beatrice wiped her cheek, attempting a watery smile. "I'm highly efficient when I'm motivated." Wynne laughed, the rich, booming sound she had missed so desperately echoing in the quiet street. He closed the distance between them, ignoring the expensive suit, ignoring the luxury car, and gently cupped her face with his rough, calloused hands. "You're a terrifying woman, Beatrice Sterling," he murmured, his amber eyes searching hers. "But you still owe me a burnt pot of macaroni." "I'll buy you 1,000 pots," she breathed, leaning into his touch. "No," Wynne whispered, leaning down until his forehead rested against hers. "Just learn how to cook in one." When he kissed her, it wasn't a transaction. It wasn't a merger or an acquisition. It was an equal partnership, built on a foundation stronger than any skyscraper Beatrice had ever owned. She wrapped her arms around his neck, finally stepping out of her golden cage and into a real home. The corporate world would soon learn that Beatrice Sterling had a new partner, and while he didn't own a hedge fund or wear bespoke suits, Wynne Hayes proved to be the most valuable asset the billionaire CEO had ever found. If Beatrice's fierce loyalty and Wynne's unbreakable integrity inspired you, hit that like button. What would you have done if you discovered your nanny was a billionaire? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to share this incredible story of love and justice with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more dramatic real-life stories with massive twists.